Lee Anthony, Leeanthony.
Good morning, Mr. Anthony.
Morning.
Mr. Anthony, did you at one time own the white Pontiac Sunfire?
Yes.
Okay. From what year to what year did you own that car?
Approximately 2000 until early 2005.
I'd like to show you some photographs, if I may. Your Honor, I'd like to publish to both the witness and the jury states Exhibit 47, 79, and 80.
You may publish.
Can you see that, sir?
No, you can't say.
Oh.
You want me to do it, or you gonna do it? I'll do it.
Thank you, Judge.
Yes, I can see it.
Is that the white Pontiac Sunfire that you once owned?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. I'd like to now show you photographs. States 79. Do you see that, sir?
Yes, I do.
Does that appear to be the trunk of your of the car you once owned?
Yes, it is. I recognize the amplifier in the back.
Okay. Give me a second. I'm trying to clear up the glare if I can.
For us to put them on for you. Just let them know which ones you want, if you can find them.
Okay, can you see that now?
Much better.
Okay. Now, when you owned this car, was there a stain in the trunk of the car?
There were a few, yes.
Okay. Can you show with the illustrator, just kind of circle on the screen where these stains were?
Okay. I specifically remember there being 3. They were all outside of the...
Go ahead and mark on the...
Okay, they're all outside of the tire cover. There was one there, approximately. There was one higher up below the amplifier. And then there was a smaller one just kind of on the side over here.
And were they there when you purchased the car?
From everything I remember, yes. I remember seeing those numerous times throughout the time I owned it.
Did you have an occasion to stain the trunk of your car on any occasions? How long did you own it again? I'm sorry.
Almost 5 full years.
So in those 5 years, did you ever create any stains in the trunk?
I'm sure I may have, but I don't recall specifically making any of those 3, but I do remember seeing them. You know, it was just normal to see those.
Okay, I'd like to show you another photograph. Is this a little better view of the trunk?
Yes.
Can you show us where?
Exhibit number states what?
States 80.
Thank you.
Apologize. Can you show us where on this photograph the stains were?
Sure. Let's see here. And then the other was off the picture.
Off the picture. Okay. And how long would you say those stains were there?
If not I don't know for sure. More often than not, longer than for the majority of the part that I owned them, if not the entire time I owned them.
Okay. Now, they don't come up too well on these photographs.
No, they
do
don't. No, they don't.
And But they were there when you would be able to see it. Is that correct? When you opened
Absolutely.
up the trunk?
Yes.
Okay. Is everyone? May I unpublish, Judge?
You may.
The jury's finished. Mr. Anthony, can you tell us when's the first time that you noticed that your sister was pregnant?
We approach if we need to.
You may. Objection overruled.
Can you first tell us about the very first time you suspected that your sister was pregnant or noticed?
Yeah, it's hard to give an exact time, but it would have been early to mid 2008.
Now, this was during the time that you were living in the home,
Yes, I had not moved out at that point.
okay? And describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how that occurred.
How I saw Casey?
Yes, how you first saw Casey showing.
Okay. It would have been later at night. Our bedrooms are right next to the bathroom, so I was waiting for her to get out of the bathroom, and when I went in when she was coming out, I could see her, midsection, and it was showing. So at that time, it struck me as odd because I guess I just hadn't noticed it prior to that.
Okay. And what did you do with this information once you saw this? What did you?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
I believe I made some kind of comment towards Casey that said, like, excuse me, what the hell is that? And she just kind of waved me off. And then the next time I would have seen my mom, probably in the next couple of days, I recall asking her, is Casey pregnant? Looks that way to me.
Objection, not responsive narrative.
Sustained.
What happened next?
Objection, relevance calls for hearsay.
Overruled at this point, but the question should not elicit a hearsay answer.
We're not offering this for the truth of the matter, Your Honor.
I don't know what's coming out, so approach the sidebar.
Yes, sir.
You may continue.
Now, Mr. Anthony, you were saying that the next day you had advised your mother that you thought Casey was pregnant, correct?
I confronted her with that within a day or two. Yes.
Okay. And then when's the next time you saw Casey being obviously showing?
This would definitely have been in the middle of 2008. She came and picked me up at the airport.
Now, Caylee was born in 2006, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have the years wrong. No, she was born in 2005.
Oh, excuse me. So you're referring to 2005?
Yes, I apologize.
Okay. Did there come an occasion where you saw or you noticed this again to any greater? Did you see her showing more?
Absolutely. It was brutally honest at that point that she was pregnant.
Okay. And was it known in your family, or was it discussed in your family at all that she was pregnant?
Objection, hearsay specific without specifying an individual in your family.
Your mother and
Sustained.
your mother and your father.
Objection, compound question.
Sustained.
Was it discussed with your mother that at this point that Casey was pregnant?
Myself and my mother,
Yes.
prior to asking her a few months before, no.
Okay. And then after you talked to your mother about it and you confronted her, was there about a month later that you saw Casey again? Did she pick you up at the airport or anything like that?
Assumes a fact, not an evidence, that he confronted anybody.
Sustain, rephrase your question.
Was there an occasion where your sister picked you up at the airport?
Yes, there was.
Okay, and how was she showing when she picked you up at the airport?
Far enough out to where I know she just wasn't putting on weight.
I'm sorry?
Far enough out to where I know she wasn't just putting on weight.
Okay. Are you saying that she obviously looked more pregnant?
Yes.
Okay, and was this how long after you had already confronted your mother?
Objection assumes a fact, not an evidence.
Sustain.
Move to strike counsel's comment.
I'm asking.
Let's continue. Next question.
Yes, sir. Can you give us a time frame from when she picked you up at the airport to when you had confronted your mother about Casey's pregnancy?
Objection assumes the same fact, not an evidence. I've objected twice.
Sustain.
Did you have any discussions with your mother or your father about Casey's pregnancy when she picked you up at the airport?
No, I did not.
During the time period between the time you confronted your mother and the time that you had picked her up at the airport?
Wait, let him finish answering the question. Sit down. Mr. Anthony, do not answer a question until I tell you can answer the question. Ask your question, Mr. Baez.
Yes, sir. Were there any discussions between the time that you confronted your mother and the time that you that Casey picked you up at the airport that had anything to do with Casey being pregnant?
Any objections to that question?
As rephrased, no, sir.
You may answer.
Okay. From the time I confronted her with that until that time, we never spoke about it again. No.
Okay. And when you say again, what does that mean?
Until just a few days before Caylee was born.
Okay. And are you saying that the very first time there was any discussion about Casey's pregnancy was, other than the time you confronted your mother, was just a few days before Caylee was born?
That's the only time it was acknowledged to me that that was indeed the situation, yes.
And when Caylee was born, did you go to the hospital to see your sister?
Regrettably, no, I did not.
Okay. And why didn't you go?
I was a little hurt. Just didn't want to be there.
What? Who were you angry with?
Objection. Relevance.
Sustain.
Why were you hurt?
Objection. Relevance.
Sustain.
Can you explain to us the reasoning behind why your actions?
Objection. Relevance.
Sustain.
Your Honor, may I approach so I can explain?
Yes, you may.
No, thank you.
You may proceed. Objection overruled.
Thank you. Mr. Anthony, can you tell us why you were angry and who you were angry with as to why you didn't go and see Caylee and Casey at the hospital?
I'm sorry. I was very angry at my mom, and I was also angry at my sister. I mean, I was just angry at everyone in general that they didn't want to include me, and didn't find it important enough to tell me, especially after I'd already asked. So I was very hurt, and I didn't want to. I don't think I wanted to believe it, you know. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, what do you mean they didn't want to include you?
Interpretation of someone else's intent.
Sustain.
Were you angry because they hid the pregnancy from you?
Asked and answered and leading.
Sustain as to leading.
Do you need a moment, sir?
I'm okay.
Why were you angry?
Asked and answered.
Sustain.
Are there other reasons why you were angry?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Overrule as to that question.
Were there other reasons why you were angry?
Question calls for yes or no answer, sir. Other than the answer that you've already given, were there other reasons? Yes or no?
No.
I can have just a moment, Judge.
You may.
I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Anthony.
Okay, the time is about 5 minutes to the hour of noon. We're going to recess for lunch. I'm going to ask that you not discuss this case among yourselves, nor with anyone else. Any additional instructions on behalf of the state
No, sir.
or the defense? We'll be in recess to 1:30. State recognized presence of jury.
Yes, sir.
Defense? Members of the jury, did you heed my previous admonitions during your recess? All right. Mr. Ashton, you may begin your cross-examination, sir.
Thank you. Could we begin by publishing State's Exhibit 80 in evidence?
You may.
Mr. Anthony, you see the photograph, State's Exhibit 80 in front of you.
Yes, sir, I do.
This is the photograph that you were discussing with Mr. Baez, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
I believe you indicated that there were stains pre-existent in this trunk from approximately this area, and then one that's off the picture. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
This large stained area on the spare tire cover, about the size of a basketball, that was not in the car when you owned it, was it?
I don't recognize that one as something I'm familiar with now.
And when you owned the car, it didn't have a stench, did it?
Does it have what up, sorry?
Didn't have a stench, didn't stink?
No.
Overrule?
I'm going to unpublish now, Judge, if I may. Now, Mr. Anthony, in preparation for this trial, were you requested to meet with a member of the prosecution team to go over your,
Beyond the scope.
it goes to bias, Your Honor,
Overrule?
to meet with a member of the prosecution team to go over your testimony to prepare you for what questions we would ask you on direct?
I believe so, yes.
And you refused to do that, did you not?
Yes, I did.
But Mr. Baez requested a meeting with you this week to prepare for this testimony, did he not?
To my knowledge, when he asked me, it was not to prepare for this testimony, and I had previously refused to meet with him prior to this week also. I had reached out to him prior to this week, and then we followed that up with a meeting earlier this week. Yes, sir.
So you reached out to Mr. Baez.
Last week I did, yes, sir.
For what purpose?
Judge, I'm going to object and ask that the instruction be read as requested by Mr. Ashton.
Your Honor, there's no implication of impropriety by counsel.
Overrule at this part. Let's continue.
Question was, why did you, after refusing to meet with anyone on the prosecution team, reach out to Mr. Baez?
While I was in court, the last time that I was in court, prior to me getting called onto the stand, during a break, I sat in with my folks, and there was a discussion, or I was present during a discussion where information came out that I thought it was important for Jose specifically to be made aware of. So I then took it upon myself a few days later, as I had no indication that he was going to be made aware of. I took it upon myself to do that.
And was this on the subjects that that you have discussed on direct examination here today?
No, sir. None of those items were discussed now.
All right. Now, in reference to your discovery of your sister's pregnancy, did I understand you to say on direct that you did have a conversation with Casey when you discovered what you refer to as the bump?
If I said bump, I apologize.
Well, no, I didn't mean an offense by that,
Okay.
just the evidence that you thought.
I more or less made a remark. I don't know if I was even expecting a response because I didn't really get one. I just said something of kind of what the hell is that in passing.
Do you recall having your deposition taken on July the 30th of 2009, almost 2 years ago, in reference to this case?
Yes, sir, I do.
And you were under oath at the time, were you not?
Yes, I was.
And you were questioned by Mr. George, is that correct?
Yes, I was.
And Mr. Baez was present along with other counsel, correct?
Yes, sir, he was.
This is for page 30. Let me start at 30. Page 31, line 6. Can we show that to the witness? Let me publish to the witness. All right, can you show about line 6 to line 15? Do you recall that series of questions and answers about the event of your seeing the bump or the bulge?
I recall this testimony, yes.
And in that testimony, you were asked whether you, I believe the word was, called her out on it, that being the bump.
Right.
Impeachment. The witness has already testified it has refreshed his recollection.
This is impeachment, Judge. This is not refreshment.
Overruled.
And in that event, you said, when asked if you called her out on it, you said, it wasn't really my place. If I did, not directly to her. Do you recall saying that?
It's here, so yes.
So in July of 2009, you indicated that you did not say anything directly to her about it, but your testimony here today was that you did.
Well, sir, I also did not call her out on it when she showed up at the airport to pick me up, and it was quite obvious at that point as well. I don't know exactly which scenario this one's referring to. Maybe if you refer to a
Can we show the witness?
date or time or something.
Can we show the witness page 30? And we'll let you read the whole context.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
No problem.
Concludes, I would ask that counsel read his entire answer, not just half of it.
Read the
The-
entire answer.
Your Honor, if I may, the remainder of the answer does not deal with this subject matter, deals with a separate subject matter.
Yes, sir.
Just a second. You can do it on redirect.
Have you read the context?
I didn't really have a starting point, I just kind of started in the middle. So would you like me to read that entire page?
Just to yourself, just to
thank you.
establish the context of whether this was the first occasion you saw the bulge or the
Yes, sir, thank you.
airport occasion. This was a reference to the first occasion, wasn't it?
I've read that entire page.
What, you were referring to the first time that you noticed, correct?
I do not recall. There's nothing in here that makes me think that that was unique to the first time or the incident at the airport. There's nothing specific asking me that.
Now, when your parents learned of the pregnancy, they were very excited, weren't they?
Couldn't tell you, they didn't admit it to me.
Well, is it your testimony that from the time that you learned it till the date of Caylee's birth, there was no activity in the home indicative of preparations for the birth of a child?
I'm not saying that at all. Actually, that was one of the reasons why I was so angry. And I decided not to go see my sister in the hospital, was because I was not included on it. And when I did ask about it one time early on, it was denied to me and I was told to let it go. So that's what I did.
Your parents were over the top about this, weren't they?
Especially afterwards, absolutely, yes, sir.
No, even before. They were over the top. You've described them as over the top. Isn't that right?
My parents are very over the top. Prior to, my sisters actually having Caylee, to be honest with you, I didn't really pay it a lot of attention. It was something that I was told to let go and not address, and I was frankly quite angry that I wasn't included in it. So a little easier to block it out at that time.
So you've said, Mr. Anthony. Can we have page 35 of the deposition, please? Could you just read that whole page, Mr. Anthony, for me,
Yes, sir.
to yourself?
Sorry, I'm just reading my last
Sure.
paragraph because I kind of ramble in there, so it's hard to get my point. Okay.
In that paragraph, you discuss the period of her pregnancy before Caylee was born, correct?
Is that 14 through 23?
Yeah, the whole page.
The
Yeah.
whole page? Yes, yes, sir, yes.
And in that, you indicate that that you felt your role was just to be there in the background to support, not really be over the top, because of course my parents wanted to be the ones to go over the top. They're grandparents, but just be there. That correctly reflects your parents' response to the imminent birth of their granddaughter, does it not?
In regards to them wanting to be over the top?
Yes, that is a description of their emotion, how they felt about it, their excitement. That's what you meant to convey by that, didn't you?
Speculation.
Asking what he meant to convey by the answer.
You can answer that question, yes or no.
I believe that was the impression that I was under. I mean, I wasn't asked to be involved with things, so all I could deduce from that is my role was to sit back, be non-judgmental, as I referenced in there, be in the background, and they would take care of it. They would do whatever's necessary, and their nature would be to be over the top.
What preparations in the house did they make for the imminent birth of Caylee?
I believe they got her a crib.
Didn't they
What
redecorate?
else I don't remember.
Didn't they redecorate an entire room? What had formerly been a family computer room that they completely redecorated for Caylee?
To my knowledge, yes. I wasn't personally involved in it, but to my knowledge, yes.
But you saw it, correct?
After the fact, yes, sir.
Right. And it's, your parents, particularly your mother, never does anything halfway. It was decorated to the nines, wasn't it?
From everything that I got to see eventually, absolutely, yes, sir, it was.
And that was in preparation for Caylee's arrival.
I imagine during preparation it was like that. If she would do everything she could, yes, sir.
Well, you were there during the period of time leading up to Caylee's birth, weren't you?
I lived there. I lived in the room right next door, actually.
And you know that your mother went nuts decorating this room for the birth of her first grandchild. Winnie the Pooh everywhere.
I know there was Winnie the Pooh everywhere. Again, I never walked in the room. I never went into the room until a little bit after the fact that after she was born. But I could imagine that she did that ahead of time, absolutely.
And your mother and your sister went shopping and bought all kinds of stuff in anticipation of Caylee's birth.
I'm sure they did.
And they had a party, didn't they?
If they did, I wasn't invited.
Should they have a baby shower?
If they did, I wasn't invited.
Were you aware of them having a baby shower?
Yes, I believe so. It was in maybe June or so.
And they invited their friends, they invited Casey's friends. Did they invite Mallory?
I don't believe so.
You believe so?
I said I don't believe so.
But you know that they had a party.
I wasn't invited, so if whatever did transpire, I have no knowledge of it.
Well, where were you when the party occurred? It happened, let me rephrase. It happened at the house, correct?
I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you saw the aftermath. You saw all the presents and all the stuff that people got for Caylee. It was at the house, right?
I didn't put any thought into it. I didn't ask to see presents, and I didn't go out of my way to do so. It was something, sir, that I was not involved in. It was something, sir, that was, I felt for a while, that was either hidden from me or something that I was not being made a part of. So I'm not going to go out of my way to invite myself or to know everything that's going on if I'm led to believe that I shouldn't be involved with it. So if that hopefully answers your question on why I wasn't an attentive potential uncle, I wish I was, but I was not.
But your parents weren't hiding this fact from their friends and loved ones. They invited them to a party.
Objection, Judge. This witness's knowledge of what his parents would do with their friends.
Sustained.
During this deposition, Mr. Anthony, we discussed the period of time leading up to the birth of your niece, and we discussed, in fact, whether you were present when she was born. Is that correct? You recall that?
I don't recall if we did, as far as me being present or not.
Okay. Page 36, just for the witness, line, let me just make sure this is only published for the witness. Yes. Line 22 and to the end of the page, just highlight that for the witness. You recall that question and answer?
I see the portion of my answer, yes, sir, and I recall the question.
Did you cry during that portion of this deposition, Mr. Anthony? To your recollection?
Don't recall if I did. I don't think so.
What was different 2 hours ago in this courtroom about that question that caused such raw emotion today, which was not present 2 years ago when you were asked the same thing?
There was other things that were asked in my deposition, specifically if I believed Caylee was
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive, move to strike.
Sustained.
The question, Mr. Anthony, is this.
Yes, sir.
What was different about the question being asked of you?
I think we need to hear what the answer is.
I
before
sustain
Right.
objection to the question.
Question before you, Mr. Anthony, is this. What was different about the way, the emotion with which you answered that question 2 hours ago? It was different than the emotion that you did not display when asked the same question 2 years ago.
2 years ago, I did not 100% hold the belief that Caylee was dead at this very moment, and 2 hours ago. And during that 2 year span, I've come to the place where I believe that she is. And my emotions are elicited from those facts that I have regrets, and I wish I could have been there a lot more than I was.
Mr. Anthony, you attended and spoke at a memorial service for Caylee
Yes,
in
sir.
January of 2009, 6 months before this deposition was taken, didn't you?
Yes, sir, I did.
No further questions.
Redirect us to those issues.
Mr. Anthony, you were asked about, can I see that photograph? You were asked about a stain somewhere in this vicinity, the size of a basketball. May I publish this, Your Honor, to both the jury and
Yes,
witness?
what's the exhibit number?
80.
States Exhibit 80, you may publish.
Yes, I was asked about that.
Do you see a basketball-sized stain there, or, I mean, do
Photograph speaks for itself.
Overruled.
you see any basketball-sized stain there at all?
I see a few stains, nothing necessarily that's the size of a basketball, no.
Do you see white powder of some sort?
The photograph speaks for itself. The witness has no basis to answer that question.
Overruled.
I do, and that's not what I would even reference necessarily as a stain that I was referring to. A white powder is a lot different than a stain, I would think.
Point to me where you see a stain in that area where Mr. Ashton was questioning you about. If you see one at all.
In this section, I do not. It's very hard to see from this photo, but there is a stain here and there's a stain here. There's also things that are circling right here at B. There looks like a different color, maybe powder or some kind of substance. I don't know exactly what that is. But the stains I was referring to were darker in nature, almost like, I apologize, I'm colorblind, so my interpretation of them might be a little different, but more like a red or like a black, sort of just a darker, deeper color.
Did you see your mother use a entire bottle of Febreze in the trunk of this car?
Objection. Exceeds the scope of cross.
Overruled.
Never.
Okay. Did you see law enforcement spray the entire trunk with a Blue Star?
I don't even know what that is, and no.
Okay. Now, Mr. Ashton asked you about whether you had met with myself in reference to your testimony. Did you meet with the defense any time prior to trial? Let me rephrase that. Let me narrow that down a bit.
Okay.
Did you meet with the defense prior to you testifying for the state of Florida against your sister?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. Did you advise us of any testimony you intended to give for the state of Florida against your sister?
No, sir.
Did you testify truthfully when you testified for the state of Florida?
Sustained.
Can I bring up page 31?
What are we publishing?
The question and answer asked by during his deposition.
Was not offered or published by the state of Florida.
I'd like to question the witness about it, Your Honor.
You can question them, but show it to the witness and the witness alone. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Page 31.
What page?
I'm double checking where. Can you go to 30? I'm sorry.
Page what?
30, I'm just double checking. I want to follow up on a question. 31, I'm sorry. It's 31. 31. You were asked, can you review lines 12 through 14?
I've read 12 through 14.
Okay. And you were asked during cross-examination, and the first sentence was read into evidence. Can you read the second sentence?
The second sentence says, I think if I did, not to her directly.
Or?
Third sentence is, or I would have had, or excuse me, or I would have said something to my mom or to a friend of mine, you know.
And that's what you were referring to when you testified about telling your mother?
Overruled.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
That's what you were referring to when you testified that when you first told your mother about
Or
Casey's
first
pregnancy.
asked her about it, yes, sir.
Okay. So what you said in the deposition is what you testified to.
Objection. Misstating what's in the record, not what he said.
It's not, the witness can answer if it's true or not.
Witness can't change the answer.
Folks, if you want to read the answer in the deposition, you can read it.
Yes, sir.
It will speak for itself. So if you want to read the entire answer, read the answer.
That, we just did that, Judge.
Okay.
That's fine, I'll move
It
on.
speaks for itself.
Yes, sir. And, sir, when you testified under cross-examination, you said that you were told to let it go. Who told you to let it go?
My mom told me to let it go.
And that's referring to your inquiries about Casey's pregnancy.
My inquiry, yes.
And can I have page 33? Lines 13 through 18. Page 33, lines 13 through 18, if you can bring them up a bit. I'd like for you to look this over, if you can, Mr. Anthony.
I read it.
Now, during cross-examination, Mr. Ashton suggested to you that that your parents were over the top and ecstatic. But that's not necessarily what,
Objection. Leading. Overruled. He hasn't finished the question. Let him finish asking the question.
is
Mr.
that,
Anthony, before you answer the question, wait for me to tell you whether or not you can answer the question. You may ask your question, Mr. Baez.
Mr. Ashton mentioned that your parents were over the top with happiness prior to Caylee being born. Is that what you testified to in your deposition?
You may ask the question, Mr. Anthony.
I believe it's to the extent of that in my deposition, yes.
Are there any other opinions you gave about your mother not being happy or not thrilled?
Yes. I gave an opinion that it was my impression or thoughts that she was not thrilled that Casey would have a baby out of wedlock.
Okay. And the baby shower that was had for Caylee, that actually occurred after Caylee was born, did it not?
Objection. Leading.
Sustain, rephrase the question.
Did Caylee's baby shower occur after she was born, since everyone didn't know she was pregnant?
Objection assumes a fact, not an evidence. Move to strike.
I'll rephrase the question, Judge.
Sustain, rephrase your question.
Did Caylee's baby shower occur after Caylee was born?
I don't recall. For sure, I don't recall. I'm sorry.
Okay. You were asked, why you didn't cry during the deposition.
Yes, sir.
Is sitting here today much different than sitting in the state attorney's office 2 years ago?
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
Absolutely.
And can you share with the ladies and gentlemen of the jury why?
I don't want to be here. I don't want, my sister to be here, my parents to be here, and I'm also emotionally and all that stuff in a much different place, than I was a couple of years ago, and this is obviously just very, very emotionally draining and very difficult.
Mr. Ashton asked you about giving a speech at Caylee's memorial prior to your deposition. And you testified about at your deposition, not believing Caylee was dead. Is that correct?
I was not willing to write it off at that point in time. I didn't want to believe it, and I couldn't believe it at that time.
So you were able, after having a funeral for your niece, to block her death out of your emotions for approximately 6 months?
Objection, leading.
Sustained.
Were you able to block that emotion out of your, compartmentalize it?
Same objection, same question.
Sustained.
What were you able to do in regards to the death of your niece emotionally for 6 months?
I don't know the exact time frame. I don't even know when I really came to the belief that I have now that she is no longer with us. I could still tell you, even with that belief, if there's someone that looked familiar to her today, it would turn my head and it would make me look twice or 3 times or 100 times. I don't know when that really changed for me. I know last year was particularly hard for me around Caylee's birthday and my birthday. But during the time of the deposition specifically, and they had even asked me at one point if I believed that she was dead, and I remember it being a big joke to some people that I didn't want to believe it or couldn't believe it. At the time, I didn't believe it, I couldn't believe it, and right now I do. So I have a very, very tough time with that.
Who was it a joke to?
Objection. Relevance.
Sustained.
I have no further questions.
Recross.
Mr. Anthony, you remember when you testified for the state of Florida? The state of Florida, remember?
July 2009, I think you referenced it earlier.
No,
Yes,
no,
sir.
no, when you testified for the state of Florida, as Mr. Baez pointed to.
Yes, sir. I apologize. Yes, sir.
How many times did Mr. George have to step up to you and show you your deposition to refresh your recollection about?
Objection, Judge. The record speaks for itself.
Goes to Baez, Your Honor.
And relevance.
Overruled.
Probably as many times as I've been showed something here today by yourself or Mr. Baez.
No.
A handful of times, 2, 3 times. I don't recall. I wasn't counting.
In your direct examination by Mr. Baez, did he need to refresh your recollection at all? I don't.
He
didn't, did
me. He did reference me to a few pages that he asked me to read. I don't believe he qualified anything to say that he needed to refresh my recollection. No, sir.
During his initial direct examination, your testimony is you recall him having to refresh your recollection.
I don't believe so.
No, your recollection was just fine for the questions that Mr. Baez asked you in his initial direct, weren't they?
On all these, I believe they were, yeah.
But when Mr. George attempted to question you on direct examination, your memory was more troublesome.
It's hard to remember something you did 2 years ago, absolutely.
Could I have, just for myself and the witness, page 31 of the deposition? Page 17, line 17 through 24. I'm sorry, line 15 through 24, please. You were asked the question at the deposition, did you say anything to your mom? Say, hey, Casey's looking. And your answer was probably, at a minimum, probably of passing. I don't think I ever made a big enough deal because, you know, if my mom didn't make it a big deal or if she shrugged me off or whatever reason.
This is not impeachment.
It is impeachment, Your Honor.
Overruled.
If she shrugged me off for whatever reason, then either I was wrong or my sister was just getting fat, or for whatever reason, they don't really want me involved in it, you know, whatever, either way. So at deposition, your recollection was at best that you probably spoke to your mother.
That's what this says here is probably. I do remember speaking to my mother, but that says probably.
So your recollection is better today than in July of 2009 at the deposition?
If you assume that because I didn't say the word probably today? Sure.
Well, you will admit that your recitation seems to be somewhat not a big deal. Don't really remember it very well, correct?
Argumentative.
Sustain this to the last question. Sure.
You said probably at minimum of passing. I don't think I ever made a big deal.
Objection. Excuse me, Mr. Ashton. My objection is this has been asked and answered. He's read this already. It's the record.
Sustain.
If we could go to page 33, please. Lines 1 through 8. Read that, please.
To myself?
Yes, to yourself.
Thank you.
And if you need to see the page before, I'll be happy to show it to you, but
Thank you.
This is outside the scope of redirect, Your Honor.
Mr. Ashton.
yes, Judge, it's in reference to when the baby shower and the preparations were.
Overruled.
In that, you indicate, does that refresh your recollection about that the baby shower was in the months preceding Caylee's birth?
Yes.
No further questions.
Mr. Baez, any additional questions?
No further questions.
Remember when you,
I have one additional question, if I might. I'm just trying to find something deposition. I apologize. No, I don't. Thank you.
okay, Mr. Anthony, you may stand down, sir.
Yes, sir.
Cynthia Anthony, Cynthia, Anthony, Anthony.
You may proceed.
Mrs. Anthony, when was Caylee's baby shower?
It was postponed because of her birth. I believe it was around the 27th of August.
Okay. Was it before or after Caylee was born?
Caylee was supposed to be born in September. We had the shower slated for August the 13th, and Caylee was born on the 9th, so I had to switch the invitations. I had to contact everybody and change the date of the baby shower.
So just so we're clear, though, but was it the baby shower held before Caylee was born or after Caylee was born?
I just stated it was after Caylee was born because Caylee came a month early.
I understand. I just wanted to be clear about that. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
What is that a photograph of? Defense, sorry, excuse me. I'm showing you Defense Exhibit ER.
Your Honor, Mr. Baez has shown these series of photographs to me, and I do have an objection to all of them on relevance.
Pardon?
Mr. Baez has shown these photographs to me, and I have an objection to the series of them on grounds of relevance.
Okay, we'll wait till you get rid off.
Yes, sir.
Well, I object to a description of the photograph prior to its admission.
Okay. All you need to do is establish that she recognizes it and whether or not it adequately and accurately describes the subject matter therein.
Yes, sir.
And you can offer them, and we'll see if they object.
Do you recognize the photograph, Mrs. Anthony?
Yes.
Is it a true and accurate depiction of what it actually is?
Yes.
At this time, Your Honor, I would move exhibit, I believe it was ER, into evidence.
It's ER. Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
Indicated. That I would have an objection at this point, as indicated on relevance grounds.
You want to approach the sidebar, Mr. Baez?
Yes, sir. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Okay, the objection as to the last exhibit will be sustained. You
Ma'am.
may continue with your direct examination.
Yes, sir. May I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to show you again, Mrs. Anthony, Defense Exhibit A. You recognize that photograph?
Yes.
And is it a photograph that was taken at your brother's wedding?
Yes.
Okay. And is it a photograph of you and your daughter?
Yes.
Okay. And at the time that that photograph was taken, did you believe that your daughter was pregnant?
No, I did not.
Did anyone advise you that your daughter was pregnant?
Exception to the hearsay rule, Mr. Baez?
No, withdraw the question.
Okay.
Judge, at this time, I would move into evidence Defense Exhibit A.
State,
Same objection as previously lodged on relevance.
objection to be overruled. You can, that would be admitted.
Defense A will become defense number 56.
Mrs. Anthony, who attended the baby shower?
Casey's grandmothers, her aunts, some of my friends, Jesse Grunn's mother, neighbors.
Was Lee present?
No, none of the guys were present.
I have no further questions.
You may. Cross-examination. The witness may stand down.
Thank you.